Hello, AGO Organ Fest 2020, and welcome to this workshop on how your chapter can create a mentoring program for emerging music leaders. My name is Vince Carr, and for the last year I've had the pleasure of serving as the director of the National Committee on Career Development and Support. And one of our initiatives this year was the implementation of a pilot program matching several mentees and mentors from around the country. And I'd like to share a little bit about what we've learned, and perhaps that might inspire you to create a mentoring program where you are. Before we begin, I'd like to express my appreciation for my tremendous colleagues, Doris Dabrowski, Jessica French, Andrew Johnson, and Anthony Rispo. We were brought together on this committee by National Counselor for Membership, David Lamb, and benefited from Eric Burke's wonderful assistance from national headquarters all throughout this year. The AGO Mentorship Initiative was born out of several conversations with the committee about how to best prepare the 21st century organist, recognizing that what we've always done may not work and perhaps should not work in the 21st century. We have an ever-changing church, an ever-changing musical landscape for organists. And how do we best prepare those younger organists for a successful career, whatever that might look like? And so when we look at the corporate world, where mentorship is very common, particularly for junior employees, what can we borrow from that corporate experience and somehow give it to those younger organists who may be looking for that really honest, direct, and frank advice? And so the goal was to be a positive one, but also to be constructively critical at times. So really targeting where the young person would be focusing their attention or thinking about how they might shape their vocation as they moved along in their career. What set this apart from other denominational mentorship programs is that this was not an internship. This is old school phone calls. You're going to pick up the phone, call the mentor. The mentee would call the mentor would call the mentee. So sharing those responsibilities and having a goal for each conversation. 3 phone calls were the framework in which we worked. Our next logical step was to consider those attributes that make great mentors, particularly great mentors for organists, and acknowledging a little bit of the psychology that goes along with a career in organ and church music. And so we looked for mentors that were very well established in their career, had great characters, but also possessed the ability to ask difficult questions and have difficult conversations and not shy away from them, but also deliver advice, deliver suggestions and criticisms in a positive way. So, not losing sight of that pastoral element and showing great care for the individual while setting some very clear goals. Due to the limited time frame of the pilot program, we felt it was important to find mentees that were at a pretty critical point in their early career. These were individuals in between 20 and 30. They could be at the end of their undergraduate careers, at the beginning of their graduate careers, about to make their first professional job move, considering whether or not they want to go on for more schooling. This is a critical moment in a young musician's life and where they can really benefit from having a mature perspective. But one thing we also insisted upon is that it was holistic. We didn't want young organists to be encouraged to follow one path exclusively, whether or not they were being groomed for a concert career or specifically in one denominational track doing one thing. Because we truly believe that the 21st century organist is going to be that person who pulls together several different talents and gifts and has several dimensions to their life as an organist, not just one track. Here you see a bit of a schematic or set of instructions about the first phone call. the first of the three phone calls that would take place in between the mentor and the mentee. And you can see here that this is all about getting to know you. So it's about the person, it's about the individual, not just the organist, wanting to know a little bit about them, a little bit about their wants and desires and likes and interests. And we felt that building that trust was an important component of this and certainly foundational from the beginning. Phone call 2 would deal more specifically with the interests of the mentee, particularly the interests as they relate to the organ in the church music world. And this is where we had hoped that the mentor would start to give more targeted advice and start to begin that network of connections that could help the mentee achieve their goal. So, for example, if a student were interested in being the director of music at a large Episcopal parish, perhaps the mentor would think through kind of a Rolodex of their connections and say, who do I know in a large Episcopal environment who could help this particular mentee, or at least allow them to create a connection and get to know each other. The last of the three conversations feature the mentee calling the mentor. So we wanted to instill a little bit of that personal responsibility and forthrightness in the mentee. Sometimes younger organists are a bit shy, they might be reticent to be very proactive. And we were hoping that after the previous two phone calls, the mentee would feel inspired to just be a little bit more aggressive about showing some direction in their career and where they want to go. And so this conversation was really about looking toward the future, but way beyond the immediate. So not dealing with the more pressing issue of maybe a job interview that was coming up very soon, these threshold events in our lives where we're graduating from one degree, going to another, but rather really thinking long term and taking that timeline out very far. And then wrapping up the conversation with some gratitude, appreciation, but also looking toward the future and when perhaps they could meet in person, hoping that this relationship would really last a long time. It was our hope that some of these mentees could meet the mentors at the AGO Atlanta convention, but alas, our virtual relationships will have to suffice for now, so they'll have to just meet on Zoom or FaceTime going forward. At the end of the pilot program, which lasted several months, we sent a survey out to all the participants just to get some feedback about what their sentiments were. How did they feel it went? What were some advantages, disadvantages? Was there some things that could be improved? And also to just see what these relationships would look like going forward and if the AGO should implement something like this more regularly. And our responses were overwhelmingly positive, and many believe that this was a very useful initiative for the AGO to continue. Obviously, one of our major impediments was the coronavirus pandemic, which we're still dealing with now. But this caused, about a month in to the mentorship initiative, it caused several problems with relationships and communication. And so some were not able to really bring the mentorship initiative to fruition. In one case in particular, there was just a poor pairing, and this happens. It was apparent after the fact that the mentor was not the most adept, and this led to frustration on the part of the mentee. These are growing pains, and these are some things that you would probably encounter if you started your own mentorship initiative at the chapter level. One thing that we did not have was the ability to meet everyone in person because the AGO is spread out all throughout the country, and we took these recommendations from several people. We tried to vet as best we could, but of course, sometimes two people just don't get along well together, and that's okay. And just know that if you start this at your own chapter level, sometimes this might happen. But generally speaking, and by far the overwhelming majority of our participants thought this was a fantastic idea and really gained a considerable amount of knowledge and encouragement from the program. One thing I want to communicate is how manageable this is. It's really not difficult, and I hope that the PowerPoint presentation gave you a little bit of an idea of how straightforward the blueprint is. And so if you just take this and apply this to your chapter, sometimes I would imagine larger chapters are going to implement something like this more easily. But once those mentors are found, and once the due diligence is done, you will be able to provide excellent guidance and just an ear, a mature, knowledgeable, and productive ear for these young emerging leaders for years to come. We took a big risk this year. We didn't know how this was going to pan out. It was just a dream that we had back in October of 2019. But I'm so excited to say that this worked out. And I would encourage you to figure out how you can implement any kind of mentorship, even if it's not as fleshed out as this one was. What could you do to mentor the next generation and ensure that our profession benefits from these wonderful emerging leaders for years to come? Thank you.